Meeting for September 9th, 2020 via Zoom. And as usual, we will have a moment of silence. And I'd like for us to remember all those affected by this horrible virus and their families, and those on the front lines, doctors, nurses, EMT, police, fire, all who answer their call to duty unselfishly. And those everyday important essential workers, the garbage collectors, the supermarket workers, food servers, just to name a few. And even here in our township, our management and our administrative staff, our public works, all working together to keep our township running. Let us support our local businesses the best that we can, and don't forget to tip those people that are serving you. They're trying to make a living out there. Most of all, let's treat people with respect and kindness, and together as this community, we will become stronger when this horrible thing is over. If we just bow our heads for a few seconds. Say a pledge of allegiance with the board. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Lewis, any changes or additions to the agenda today?
There are no changes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have no special actions today. Public comment. Do we have any public comments that come in today?
Yeah, I have two public comments. The first of which, bear with me here. First of which is from Frank McCarran, 42 Rittenhouse Circle, Newtown. He attached a report that was distributed to the board yesterday. And it reads, attached are observations and suggestions that I wish to submit to the Board of Supervisors pertaining to the 5-year forecast.
Has everyone had a chance to review that? I know it's a lengthy report, and he did give us a detailed report at the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at that, or do we need it to be read today? Or
well, can I make a suggestion? I mean, after all, in a public notice for this meeting, we said all comments will be read out loud. Mm-hmm. And I know this is, pretty lengthy report. And as we did in the hearing on Toll Brothers for a very lengthy report, Mr. Oxley was kind enough to read a summary of the points made in that. And I suggest that we, as a compromise, mention the summary points that were in this comment. And as long as that's okay with people submitting comments, long comments, I mean, I think we should get their permission to not, speak out loud the whole comment if it's too long. But if they have a summary, we could do that. So if it's okay with the board, I'd like to just read a couple of summary points from that comment.
Well, I mean, the prior meeting, you read the whole comments that were given. So in this case, Secretary, why don't you read the whole comment that he submitted?
It's rather long, and at the other hearing, there was one comment that was several pages, and we decided not to read the whole thing, but to read just the summary points. And I suggest doing that. I'm not prepared to read the whole thing. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe Micah has it. If you really want to read the whole thing, that's fine with me, but Micah would have the whole thing in front of him. I don't have it right now.
I think we all, this was given ahead of time. It wasn't faxed in today. We all have been given it. And to read summary points would be summary points that you have summarized. So it's not really.
Not
the person-
necessarily, no.
the
He
person's
had some summary
report.
points at the end of his comment. He had some summary points.
Okay, then go ahead. Mr. Mack will read the summary points as given by Mr. McCarron.
Before you do that,
If he's
Nice.
watching, he could come in and dispute that at a later time.
I have a question for Mr. Sander. Can we have the entire email entered into the minutes? Is that something we can do?
Yes.
Do we need a motion or anything, or
No.
no? Okay.
Yeah.
But,
Let's just give it to the secretary, or, our recording secretary, rather.
Mr. Lewis, if you could make sure that that happens too, as well, whatever else happens. Thank you.
Well, okay, that's a good idea.
Good idea.
You know,
Okay.
I like that idea.
Okay, Mr. Mack, you want to read the summary?
And a couple of points that he made was to perform a benchmark comparison of grant revenues awarded elsewhere in Bucks County, so money is not left on the table. Project the cost savings of hired part-time non-civil service personnel. Perform a benchmark comparison to Northampton Township to look for more cost-effective ways of operating the NESD. Perhaps Newtown Township can at least delay hiring firefighters. And to pursue greater diversity in hiring practices. He said 15% of Council Rock School District North student population is minority or non-white in comparison to the police department, which is all white. And that's a few of the points that he made in summary.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment, Mr.
Yeah,
Lewis?
I have one more. Just so everybody, the whole board's aware that I forwarded the letter from Mr. McCarron to the board yesterday, and I informed Mr. McCarron that I had done that, and that I will mention as part of public comment that it was distributed to the board, but we'll also incorporate it into the minutes. Second comment is from Terry Halper, 7 Geranium Court, Newtown. Following complaint has been filed with the Pennsylvania Department of Health due to the lack of timely action by Newtown Township Manager Micah Lewis and the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors to protect the health and welfare of the 20,000 Newtown Township residents, more than half of which regularly use the parks per the website. Due to this wanton and reckless endangerment of the public health of Newtown Township residents, I also request that the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors authorize and create a public health board of volunteers as provided under the Pennsylvania State Code. I volunteer as a certified health professional with a master's in public health from Drexel University to be the first such volunteer of the Newtown Township Public Health Committee. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about that? I mean,
Well, let's, hold on, that's public comment. We could discuss it at a later time. We usually do not discuss public comment. Let's treat it as if he came up to the podium. And why don't we move on? We can bring it up later on in the agenda if you'd like.
okay.
Okay. I guess is that all for public comment, Mike? Is anything else?
That's correct. That's all I have at this time.
All right, let's move on to police report. Chief Hearn.
Good afternoon, everybody. Regarding the August 2020 police report, we documented 1,686 calls for service. We logged just under 21,500 miles of patrol miles driven on the car. We're still operating under COVID-19 precautions as well. For the month of August, we did have 22 arrests. There's 1 current active warrant and 1 warrant that was exceptionally cleared. We did have a burglary on Washington Crossing Road. I want to commend Detective Camp for his outstanding investigation. His leads properly identified the offender of that burglary with very limited to go on. And we do have an active warrant on that gentleman right now. There was 1 unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. It's domestic related, 2 retail thefts, 4 narcotics, 2 were possession only, and 2 were possession with intent to deliver. There was 2 simple assaults at a party in the township. There was 1 warrant for an outstanding warrant at a Norristown Township, and we did have 12 DUI arrests. Just keep in mind, DUIs seem to be increasing. Uber, Lyft, taxi, call a friend. Please do not drive intoxicated or under the influence of any narcotics, whether prescribed or not prescribed. There were 20 new cases assigned to detectives, 3 crime scenes were processed. There was 41 traffic crashes. There was 2 injuries, 10 of which non-injuries, 17 minor property damage, 2 hit and run, and we're back into the deer season. So pay attention to the deers. We have 10 deer collisions. There were 216 traffic citations issued, 109 warnings issued. We did have an aggressive driving detail, which increased that number that we normally report. That was supplied by a grant by the Pennsylvania state. There were 6 enforcement details, 2 on Eagle Road, 2 in the neighborhoods, 1 on the bypass, 2 on Swamp Road, and 1 on Fountain Farm Road as a result of a neighborhood complaint. We had 2 truck enforcement details with the task force, 1 in Wrightstown, which was involved in 17 inspections, 9 citations, 8 warnings, 4 vehicles placed out of service, and 1 in Upper Makefield with similar numbers. As part of my public service announcements, theft from vehicles are back on the rise again. There's an individual hitting throughout Bucks County overnight and early AM hours. So please do not leave valuables in your car and secure your cars, particularly overnight. In addition to that, we have frauds continuing. You're reminded not to give out your personal information to anybody you do not know. Do not buy gift cards for any type of scam. Go to CVS, Walgreens, and saying, this guy said if I buy 5 gift cards, we'll be able to take care of whatever problem you may have. That's not factual. Do not buy into that stuff for the public. Regarding Mr. McCarron's, I might as well address Mr. McCarron's questions pertaining to his part-time inquiry, as well as what else did he say here about diversifying in the police department. I want to thank Mr. McCarron for his interest in policing in our budget. Myself, I'm part of the, I took budgeting and business in school. So salary-wise and benefit-wise, yeah, it would save you money initially, hire part-time officers. But the long-term impacts may be more substantial to you financially and liability-wise. So I would suggest not hiring part-time officers. In addition to that, we have collective bargaining agreements we have to comply with. There's mandatory training requirements. Us in Newtown, we have an outstanding police department. You look at them comments from Econ Solutions that came in, they were very positive. That's based on the commitment and the dedication that our officers have to the community. I do not want to damage that reputation. You have to build trust and legitimacy with the community. You cannot do that if you're only working a day a week or a couple hours here and there. This goes on to an ongoing relationship and partnership with the community. I think we do an outstanding job, and I would opt not to hire part-time officers for short-term budget shortfalls. Regarding diversity in hiring practices, we are a equal opportunity employer, both in the police department and in Newtown Township in general. We seek to hire the best qualified candidates. We do not discriminate on race, gender, sexual preference, religious beliefs. Formal education doesn't even matter. As long as you have a high school diploma and you're Act 120, you're eligible to take the Police Township Bucks County Consortium test. We're part of a testing agency involved in 38 departments that test across the board anybody that wants to apply. Every one of our departments are an equal opportunity employer. Members that have an interest in applying to the township have to take that testing process. That testing process just came out and was finalized. The written test was July 13th to the 17th, and the physical agility was in August. I attended the physical agility on a Saturday myself to watch the candidates. I got a complete list from the Bucks County Consortium Commission with the eligible names on the list. Therefore, I asked Michael Lewis the other day if I could move forward with hiring Lieutenant Matthews' replacement. I'll be happy to answer other questions you may have.
Questions for the chief?
I have a few questions, if you don't mind. The list of the candidates who passed these exams, can you say how many candidates were in that list? Eligible candidates?
There was, believe it or not, there was 450 applications, is what I was told, that paid the $50 fee to take the test. Out of taking the written test, only 150 so passed the written test. Out of them 150 that took the written test, about 40 of them failed the physical agility aspect. So the current list is eligible for 115 ballpark applicants for 38 departments. Out of them 115 applicants, each applicant has to apply to the particular agency that they have an interest in working for. Right now, we have 64 initial applications.
64. Do you know, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details, but for example, are there many women involved in those applicants?
Based on the names, there's a few. Other than that, I haven't go into their application file until I get approval to move forward with my hiring.
Okay. Just in terms of your call for service, I always like to mention about the calls for drug overdose. I see there were 4 calls. Obviously, nobody died, so there was some rescue, I assume, and but I didn't see any use of Narcan by the police. Do I assume then that was handled by perhaps the Newtown ambulance squad?
Newtown ambulance squad, or if they were awake when we arrived on location, there's no need to administer Narcan.
Do you think there's an uptick in the amount of use of narcotics? I mean, you mentioned DUIs, more drinking, more child abuse during this pandemic?
Child abuse tip lines, we are conducting some investigations regarding child issues. Regarding DUIs, most of our DUIs do have a combination mix of both alcohol and drug use in their system. They're usually taking blood down at Northampton, and we wait for the results to come back. But unfortunately, it's both prescription and non-prescription drugs that people are using, and it's causing a hazard to our motoring public and our pedestrians out there as well.
Okay. More interesting is, well, just as interesting, in the statistics for August, I see 2 incidents involving discharge of weapons. Is that, that's not typical, I imagine, but any explanation?
It's for humane reasons for animals. It's deer related. Deer struck by a car on the highway. It's still alive on the side of the roadway, but it's got some issues. So
Right.
main reasons we put the deer down.
And there's one other thing that I just needed some education on. There was activation for MIRT. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, MIRT is a major incident response team. It's a county-wide approach to mass incidents, which involves a large contingent of officers. We have several officers on that detail. If they're activated for a particular call out, whether it's a protest, a riot, a major event, a catastrophe in somebody's jurisdiction, that we would have a large contingent of officers respond and be able and trained to properly handle it.
All right, thank you for that information. As you know from the public meeting we had, there were questions from people. They didn't know exactly what the police department does every day. So it's good to hear these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brick.
Chief, I'd like to get back to the DUI situation. You said that it's been picking up during this COVID virus. What kind of severity is a DUI based on legal aspects? I mean, is it a misdemeanor? Is it a minor felon? What would be classified?
They're misdemeanor classifications, and if somebody makes an error on their behalf and they consume too much alcohol and are arrested for DUI, the major contribution to them would be their legal fees. A lawyer probably is going to charge them $5,000 in addition to a criminal conviction. Usually first-time offenders are giving a ARD program where they're given alternative methods from the courts to basically educate them on the severity of their issues.
Is this something that would hinder a person for, like, on a job application or anything like that?
That'd be up to the agency that was actually seeking them. If they completed the ARD program, the records would basically be expunged for that particular violation. But up until that point, you would have cause for concern.
What if any of these, just to throw this out there, any of these potential candidates that you're looking at were to have a DUI on their record, how would you view that?
It would be determining how long ago the actual conviction was, whether or not they completed the ARD, first time offenders program, and have had no other violations within that parameter. I'd be open to it.
Okay, thank you. Any
You're welcome.
further questions for the chief?
Chief, hi. Thank you for being here. As far as the candidates from the Bucks County Consortium, and you and I have had conversations about this before, but I wanted to find out, because you go up to see a lot of the tests and the physical agility and stuff like that. Are there like a good, I mean, tell me if do you see people of color that attend those tests?
The written tests I did not attend, so I don't know. The physical agility tests I did go out to. There was 2 African-American males. There were several females, a few Hispanic males at that location, but not a dramatic number of applicants for that particular assignment.
Now, you said there applied, it was like 450 people that applied, right?
That's what I was told from Bucks County, yes.
Now, when these applicants, are these all folks that just say, hey, I want to become a police officer and just apply? Or is there some sort of, I don't know, police job, I don't know,
Well,
search, or like some sort of like fair?
most police agencies, we hire through, if you have an interest in policing, you're obviously searching, especially if you're a 20, 21, 22-year-old kid. You're looking on the internet. How do I hire for policing? How do I get a job here? They'll Google search, and it'll come up with the PA police chiefs, the Bucks County police chiefs, Discover Policing, IACP website. There's various factors that you would actually look at, and then post all types of jobs across the country. And you have an opportunity to register to be alerted when opportunities come up in this particular region. You'll be notified directly by email or phone call. With that, it's up to you to follow through with that application procedure and just fill out your application and take a written exam to take the written exam and then the physical agility. Like I said, it's usually a $50 fee. The test is good for a year. It covers, let me see here. Each application must apply for the agencies that have an interest in working on. The $50 fee covers physical assessment, the written exam, and a validation of the results for 12 full months. So it's on a record system, so there's a full running list. The problem is, if you wait too long to hire off that list, the reason somebody wasn't selected is probably because they have issues. They were probably talked to by a certain agency. The idea is to strike early, to find out the best qualified candidates, because we want the best people working for us.
Okay. Do you think that maybe and the reason why I'm asking these questions is because obviously in this year, it's been very prevalent that there have been some issues, not here in Newtown, obviously, but around the country, where you have a challenge between the community and the police officers out there and pertaining to certain events that have occurred. Obviously, we'll talk about George Floyd to start. And I find it to be where, yes, from Mr. McCarron's comments, what are we, 15% of township of color, maybe 15%, or maybe even less than that. And I mean, when I say of color, just talking all minorities in that. I'm thinking about how we can reflect our police force in the best way possible so that those numbers match up to our officers. And I know the Bucks County Consortium has a specific way they go about getting applicants because they just apply, but I'm just intrigued to find out. Maybe I can go, I don't know if I speak to Matt Weintraub about this, or maybe I'm going to ask you, is there a way that we can go out, there's so many young people out there, right, that probably have the ability to be good police officers, especially in communities like ours and others. Is there a way that we can go out and maybe encourage them to go to the schools or, go to community colleges, or to say, hey, listen, like, being a police officer is a great job and something that I think that your community would definitely enjoy you being a part of.
I actually think police is an awesome job.
Awesome job. Awesome job.
Awesome
I
job.
hope so.
Awesome job.
Yes.
And
What I say,
continue-
good or great? What I say? I say good. It's an awesome
average,
job.
whatever. It's awesome though. Just remember that. But I'm a firm believer in hiring the best candidate. Do I think we could do a better job recruiting outside of the element of the Bucks County Consortium test? Yes, I have been looking at different avenues to do so. The
Okay.
fact comes into the time constraints of going to another jurisdiction to try to recruit certain individuals to come up to the township to be members of the police department. I would encourage everybody on the board, any of our township officials, any of our neighbors that know somebody that wants to try out for the police department, to please do so. And just so you know, diversity is much more than just race. You're right, we do have a Caucasian, as McCarron said, mostly Caucasian police department. However, diversity is much more than race. It goes into gender, it goes into sexual orientation. There's other factors that come into play. And I can reassure you that we are diverse in our various hiring and our staffing measures here. The race aspect does have to be addressed, but I need the right candidates to apply for the position. So I would encourage you to do so. I will continue to do my best to also recruit them, but I also want the best qualified candidate.
Mr. Chief, I just read in the Bucks County Courier Times about NAACP, Bucks County, working with the Ben Salem Police Department in some cooperative agreement where both parties agree to work together to encourage and assist Ben Salem residents, especially residents of color, to consider serving the Ben Salem Township community by becoming a police officer. Has the NAACP ever contacted you about some kind of cooperative agreement to help achieve that kind of goal?
No, I'm assuming they probably done it through the Bucks County Commission, the Consortium Commission. Ben Salem doesn't usually hire from that Consortium Commission. They hire, since they have a large department of our 120 officers and their staffing, they actually go out and recruit. They actually take applications. They do their own testing. It's a whole different animal than what we're used to.
Okay.
Okay. Any other further questions for Chief? Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Looks like we don't have any minor approvals or public hearing. Reports of committee, boards, and commissions. No committees today. Go right into the board members. Go to Mr. Fisher.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have 3 items to report on. One is the Newtown Fire Association. John and I attended Monday before last. I guess it was the 30th. And we discussed with them that they're, and at the last work session, they were at our last work session, and we talked about the purchase of a new fire truck that they're paying for out of their funds. They're in the middle of doing the purchasing and outfitting it, and taking advantage of some incentives, sales incentives on the price. I see John has a Beer Fest T-shirt in the background there, so maybe he has something more to say. I wasn't prepared to say anything other than the Beer Fest is not being held this year.
Right.
In lieu of.
You know, as you know, the Beer Fest was their biggest fundraiser and they had to cancel it. So what they're doing instead is having these items for sale, like T-shirts, mugs, and so forth. So that's why I had that up there.
Okay, Dennis, you want to continue the report?
Yeah, my second report is from the Sewer Authority. I attended the Sewer Authority monthly meeting yesterday. And just to say that our sewer replacement is getting to the point of completion over here in Nob Hill and Devonshire. We're finally getting to sod everybody's lawns where they tore them up. And some work still to do. It'll probably be another few weeks, if not a month or so. Mike, we did make a good decision to move the road program back until next year for Nob Hill and Devonshire. And then thirdly, yesterday afternoon was a finance committee meeting, and I've 3 items to report from that meeting. One is that the finance committee members are reviewing the ESI report, their draft final report, and they were going to gather some comments. I think we talked about consolidating the comments into one document. So I guess I have a question about the timing. Right now, they are going to write up their comments through Thursday, and then George is going to compile them. George Cladani is going to compile them on Friday and get them to you on Friday or Monday at the very latest. I was wondering if that works.
Friday would be better.
Friday would be better. Okay. The plan is Friday, so I just seeing if there was any wiggle room. Okay, good. So there'll be some comments coming from that. The committee is working on a phase 2 communications plan. They hope to have it ready for the September 23rd meeting, just to what they're planning on doing is come up with a list of highlights and but most of the highlights of the recommendations around the ESI report that we'll actually should be receiving on the 23rd of September. So that should come into alignment. Then the last recommendation that the Finance Committee had is to have some kind of township finance forum. That would be to discuss the findings of the ESI report. Their timing is they're recommending a timing of 1 or 2, I'd say maybe 3 weeks after the final ESI report's accepted, to have some kind of financial forum where public would be invited. It would be a public meeting on Zoom or television. This is a recommendation that they have. They want to know if they could start gathering some ideas around that, maybe present it to us on the 23rd as well. So that's a question for the board. Would we like to go have a special, my suggestion to them was to wait until the August work session, or the October work session. But there might be a conflict with presenting the budget that night.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's a conflict, if it ties together or not. I'm sorry.
Dennis, in regards to, you said something very important, the budget. I didn't hear any mention that they discussed the budget at all. In October, I mean, Mike is working on the budget now. October presentation is that work session of, usually we only have that on the agenda for that day.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing about the budget? What is their timeline on reviewing anything that Mike may have at the moment and giving us suggestions on the budget?
Well, I'm sure they'd love to get their hands on what Micah could share with them. The ESI report has a lot of comparisons of projected budgets for the ending this year. They also have projection into the coming year as well. So they've been looking at a lot of that and reviewing all those figures from ESI that are based on the township's figures that we've had so far. Haven't really, I mean, they anticipate working on the budget with us, but I guess it would be a situation where we'd like to have something from the township that would help us begin that.
Well, Micah, when do you think you're going to have a sample budget? Would it be the budget presentation or?
Yeah, it would be that middle October meeting. Typically, the budget remains a non-public document until the board approves a preliminary budget. However, as with the ESI report, if it were the board's consensus to send it to the finance committee after that presentation, that would be up to the board.
Well, I would like to have the finance committee look at it because there's maybe some line items on there that they will pick up that maybe it's a lot more eyeballs looking at it. And, you know, there could be some expense cutting that they see or revenue generation ideas that they may have, but the only way they're going to know this is by looking at that budget, provided they know it's not a public document, but it's something that maybe they could discuss in their future meetings.
And they've been very, very good about that. I mean, when I shared documents that aren't yet public for their being able to work on them with the board's approval, we've been able to give them some information that they can work with. And so if that would be possible, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
What about the idea of the financial forum? Does that sound like something we could
I would have
discuss?
I would have to see a sample of it. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about right now, except financial forums. Forum or forum? I don't.
Who would run it? Who would be the
Yeah, I mean, if they have
would the board
if
be
there's
expected
something
to
that they're
attend?
going to present at the forum, it's a forum.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so we can get some more details and maybe give you something more formal on the 23rd. I mean, there wasn't any chance to pull anything together.
Dennis, are you finished?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Mack, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, I also attended that meeting and they were talking about, you know, an unofficial meeting so the public can have their comments regarding the proposal by ESI once it becomes public, the document, and they could speak to the issues in that public document. And they were suggesting things like, you know, having a live meeting on a Saturday, although it's a limited, you know, audience. But I've been talking to some residents and just today about, you know, a lot of people don't even have access to cable TV. They're using Hulu and getting a cheap Comcast account without access to channel 22, et cetera. So, you know, live meetings might be even better. But in any case, I have a few things to report on. One was the Act 32 Bucks TCC, which is the Tax Collection Committee meeting, which was held via Zoom on August 31st. And just for some background, back in October, resident Greg Carber stated he received a refund check, but he never got an explanation from Keystone as to why they screwed up in the beginning. And he made many calls to try to get an explanation and didn't get any satisfaction. So this TCC meeting was a public meeting. I invited him. I was told I should be represented there, and I invited Mr. Garber to attend that meeting, and he made his case. And I'm happy to report that Joseph Lazaro, who's the Vice President and General Counsel of Keystone Collections Group, responded to Mr. Garber and will look further into his case and get back to him. It is interesting to know that Keystone records every phone call and can play it back when investigating a case. So in case you do have a problem with Keystone, be aware of that. But more importantly, for Newtown, we got a report on Eit Collection. And at the October 31st meeting, I was informed that the Eit Collection for the whole of Bucks County was only down by $13,000 compared to 2019, which was a banner year. Just today, I got another update that said that the Bucks Tax Collection District ended up with an increase of about 1.6 million from 2016. And specifically for Newtown, comparing earned income collections from January 1st, 2020 through August 31st, 2020 to the similar period in 2019, Newtown Township specifically is up about $258,000 or 4.8%. That's quite different than what we anticipated as an 8 to 11% decrease, I believe, from our consultants. The other thing that information I got was that Keystone Client Services has a menu of reports that the township can order free. These reports include collection reports, employer reports, and individual taxpayer reports. I've never seen anything. They sent me something that showed all the, I think it was around 3,800 employers in Newtown Township, how many people they employed, and how much EIT they collect totally. So there are reports like that that are available. I don't know if the township has ordered, or I can, after this, I'll send to Micah that menu of items and information if you don't already have it, Micah. Yes, the Newtown Fire Association meeting, they didn't have much to report on the Beer Fest, which was canceled, so they're trying to do this fundraising. And they also talked about replacing the concrete ramp at Station 55, and I just recently learned that the Newtown Fire Association owns that building as well as all the equipment in it, and they estimated that the cost of repairing that ramp would be $44,000 to $50,000, which I guess will come from their accounts, so no expense to Newtown. I also attended the JZC meeting, Joint Zoning Council. Did anybody else attend that meeting? I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Yeah, I did.
Dennis, okay. Correct me if I make some mistakes here, but as far as the E30 resolution, they gave a timeline for the Township's Board of Supervisors final review of this. It'll be September 15th for Upper Makefield, September 21st for Wrightstown, and September 23rd for Newtown. There was also a suggestion, a new ordinance for riding academy and boarding stables, mainly to deal with, to address the manure storage. So when I get the, you know what, on that, I will report back to you if I attend that meeting. But more importantly, the comprehensive plan was, again, talked about at the meeting, and specifically they looked over the land use section of that and made some corrections to the definitions. For example, racket clubs are no longer relevant, so replace that with athletic clubs. But one of the things they wanted to add to a classification of a land use was office, commercial offices. I don't think there was that in there, primarily to see if there's any trend in, the land devoted to office space due to changes in how companies are doing business after the pandemic is over. So they also reported on the survey they conducted, the Bucks County Planning Commission. There were 374 responses from Newtown residents, 370 from Upper Makefield, and 69 from Wrightstown. The survey officially closed yesterday, and Jeremy Stoff of the VCPC was interested in seeing the results of the Newtown Township Citizen Survey, which collected over 500 responses. Many comments, many of the 300 or more comments from that survey might be relevant to some of the things that they are talking about in the comprehensive plan. And Mr. Stoff was wondering if we could send them the results of the Newtown citizen survey that included those comments, so they can use them to inform how to address it in the comprehensive plan. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to remind everyone that this Friday is September 11th. And to remember all those that were lost that day. And especially point out, we're honoring our first responders, remembering those that rushed into the buildings on that September 11th. This Friday, 6 o'clock at Pickering Field, there's going to be a ceremony. And there's a luminary display through the borough where residents are putting bags with lights in them around their perimeter of the property along the street. So this Friday, September 11th, 6 p.m., Pickering Field, honor our first responders and remember 9/11. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Oxley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the Economic Development Committee meeting on September 3rd. We have had several different guests attending the EDC, just trying to give the committee a sense of, and when we have guests, we're either going to be some sort of real estate focused individual, someone from a particular branch of county, or folks that may have a little bit of insight into where the market is trending in terms of different businesses that might be looking to relocate and so forth. So we had Matt Shannon on from Colliers. He's a senior managing director over there, been there for about 22 years. And he just expressed to us, based upon the list of questions we had, what he's been seeing out in the field in terms of what we can do to make Newtown a little bit more attractive or desirable to larger corporations. And we specifically discussed the business commons, what we can do to kind of change that around perhaps in terms of different businesses that have actually looked at coming into the commons but decided not to actually go forth with actually putting their business there. And we just asked different questions about why and what was the issues. And a lot of what he was saying was, you know, their particular amenities. Now, Mr. Mack was very clear pointing out that we did have a few gyms very close to the commons or in the commons, and also that there was a daycare there as well. And Mr. Shannon kind of pointed out directly that a lot of the businesses like to provide their employees with a place that they can either, you know, walk out of the office, go to lunch. Granted, this is before COVID and so forth. But if we get back to a place of normalcy and we get back to what, you know, businesses want to do in terms of making sure the employees are comfortable, other options for eating. Walkability was one where adding more sidewalks was a conversation that came up. So those are kind of the things. I was really shocked when he said, I was like, it's number one issue that we don't have enough restaurants. Is that a thing? He said, yeah, a lot of larger corporations like to see that as an amenity for their businesses. So I was like, okay, for their employees, excuse me. So we talked about that for a little bit. And then I'd spoken with Margaret McKevitt of Chief Operating Officer of Bucks County. She admitted, she shared with me that there is a new $15 million grant program coming out from the county. So we discussed that at the EDC as well. That will be on the Bucks County website and it'll come out on the 14th. There actually is a webinar at 3 p.m. today that anyone can attend. It's for small businesses and franchisees. So those were a part of our discussions at the EDC on September 3rd. So, you know, some of the members are going to be sharing that with their business associations, obviously the MBA, Newtown Business Association, and also the Business Commons, to let folks know that those grant and funding are coming out. And if folks are looking to get assistance, they can email bucksbacktowork@buckscounty.org as an opportunity to kind of get some assistance when they're going through the application process. We did also, unfortunately, have a resignation from our committee. Eric Scott Gold decided that he would be better served in a different capacity elsewhere. So He is vacating his seat on the board, on the committee, and we will be looking to get replacements, or a replacement, excuse me, once it is advertised. And that will be on the website, township website, shortly this week. So that is all I have. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Oxley. How long of a period do you want the resumes to come into the township? A 2 week, 3 week period?
I don't know what's standard. If you have some, Mr. Sander has some guidance on that. Maybe a week and maybe 2 weeks at maximum. Is that possible?
Why don't we say by October 1st? That gives
Okay.
them a few weeks to, if anybody here knows of anyone that would be qualified for that position, just have them submit a resume or letter of intent. That'd be great.
So they don't have to submit both, just either letter of intent or resume?
Well, letter of intent should be describe what their qualifications and the reason why. It's almost like a resume, but look at it in letter form. So to speak.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had a quick question for Mr. Oxley, if I may.
Yeah.
Did the Economic Development Committee get copies of the ESI report?
No.
Maybe I would be one from Mr. Lewis as well. I did notice, because I've gone through it a couple of times, there are a number of development recommendations and a lot of places where they actually talk about the Economic Development Committee and give them some ideas of things to work on.
Well, I know, I'm sorry, continue, please.
It would be good to have that they know that that's in there.
Well, there is the chair of the committee, Matt Peters, is going to reach out to George and see if he can attend one of the finance committee meetings, just so that once we get exactly how we're going to go about getting things done from an EDC perspective, there's no overlap between the EDC and the finance committee. So I encourage Matt to attend the meeting. He will once he gets, I guess, a perfect scheduling between George and himself.
Yeah, I'll mention it to George as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you. That's
Thank you.
good.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving right along, we have no land development reports of officials. I have been waiting for the engineer's report, so you're up.
It's real exciting today. I have no items. However, I will provide an update for the road program. We issued the notice to proceed for the contractor for yesterday, so they're on the clock. We anticipate them starting probably in the next week or the week after that. We're still waiting for their formal schedule, but in the next week or two, that should be rolling out.
Any questions for the engineer?
Yeah, so when you have the schedule, we'll be able to publicize that, I imagine?
Yeah, we can put that on the township website. And then additionally, the contractor will be posting on the actual roads, any no parking signs and stuff like that, so that residents are informed too. They'll do that a few days before they actually start work. So everyone should be informed.
Great. I have one other question. According to the monthly report dated September 9th, regarding Brixmore land development, it says construction is substantially complete and your company is currently performing punch list inspections to close out the project. I'm just, I'm not quite sure what is on the punch list, but I know that the Mr. Joe Blackburn on February 26th told us that when the project is completed, they will do a traffic study. Is that part of the punch list items?
That will be, one of the items. Right now, we're still working on formulating it. Our inspector did his inspection, so, we're working to get all those items together, and then that will be sent to Brixmore, anything that's outstanding.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Leanne. Mr. Sanders, Solicitor's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item on the report is I would request a motion from the board to approve the written decision granting the conditional use application of Trinity Rehab for a physical therapy office in the village at Newtown, which the board approved at its last meeting.
Okay, do I have such a motion?
So moved.
All right, I'll second it. Any questions about that? I don't know. Does everybody remember this, or maybe Mr. Sander could just briefly go over it?
Yeah, this was,
Refresh our memories on what this is.
yeah, this was a physical therapy office. It's considered a D2 medical use because that's the category that it fits in the zoning ordinance. Recall they were going to start out with scheduled appointments, a limited number of therapists. There would always be a physical therapist on site during appointments. They would only see 1 or 2 people at a time, and whatever else you have in your standard physical therapy office. I think the board asked all the applicable questions, and we attached the standard conditions that we usually attach about preventing any adverse impacts on the public health, safety, and welfare. There were no medical wastes or anything to be generated. Trash removal was dealt with. All the standard things we usually see in a conditional use for the village at Newtown.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr.
Yeah, with the conditions, I had just from my education on condition 14, page 3, it says prior to the issuance, blah, 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 all the administrative, legal, engineering fees due to Newtown shall be paid in full. Do you have any idea what those fees might be? Anybody?
That's a number that's generated by the finance department and out of Micah's office. The costs involved are for the professional reviews of the applications, my time in preparing the written decision. CKS Engineers prepares a report and issues it. So the fee goes to cover that and any other expenses that it's allowed to cover
Right.
under the MPC.
I was just wondering what the amounts might be.
Number-wise,
So
that I don't know.
I'll have to make an inquiry with Micah some other time then.
Please
Thank
do.
you. That's it.
Go ahead, Dave. Mr. Sander, you're still on.
Yeah, I think there's been a motion in a second, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Jeez. Any other further questions for Mr. Sander? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir. The next item?
Thank you. Next item on our report is the approval of a written decision denying the Toll Brothers conditional use for Twining Bridge Road and 413. Recall at the board's last meeting, the board deliberated and voted 5-0 to deny the application for a conditional use for a cluster subdivision, single-family detached cluster consisting of 45 homes at Twining Bridge and 413. Since that meeting, I obtained, with Micah's kind assistance, the transcript from the hearing that took place back in February. I drafted findings of fact, conclusions of law, a legal discussion, and an order denying the application, and I would request a motion from the board to approve that written decision so I can get it to the applicant today.
Okay, so moved. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second. Any questions on this item for Mr. Sander? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in, well, let me ask, anything from the public come in over the facts? Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a resolution that Mr. Lewis asked me to prepare. Recall that the board on June 24th of this year enacted, or adopted, I should say, a resolution providing guidelines for outdoor merchandise sales and dining. That resolution contained a 90-day sunset clause that it would expire within 90 days of its adoption. It would have expired on September 22nd. Mr. Lewis asked me to draft a resolution extending that And instead of extending it to a date certain, which would require additional action if the board wished to renew it, I recommended and drafted a resolution that extends it until the township's declaration of emergency, which occurred back in March, is withdrawn, or the resolution is specifically repealed. The guts of the resolution is exactly the same as it was from the prior resolution, except that we replaced the 90-day sunset clause with, as I just said, it expires when it's withdrawn or the emergency declaration is withdrawn. So I'd request a motion to adopt the resolution extending the outdoor sales and dining during COVID-19.
Okay, so moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions for Mr. Sander?
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
question. Oh,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Cal.
Uh-huh.
No, Cal, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. Mr. Lewis, your our township emergency declaration, are you tying that to the state's emergency declaration, or what would you use to terminate our emergency declaration?
I would say yes, it would be tied to the states.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that was exactly my question. Thank you, Carl.
Being that this is a, I'll call it, I don't know if they use the term anymore, almost like an evergreen resolution. I just remember that from mortgage days. But is this something that we could all, I mean, COVID ends and we're back into a safe situation. But I mean, honestly, I was against it at first, but I find that driving around, seeing people eat outside is kind of a nice thing. Is this something that, albeit COVID is over, can it continue, be a continuum even into next year and next summer or whatever?
Sure, I absolutely. It may take another resolution because if the emergency declaration is withdrawn and we're quote unquote back to normal, this resolution will end. However, if the board thinks that's a good idea and wants to renew it, then certainly these same guidelines can be in effect for as long as the board wishes. We may even want to take a look at outdoor dining as authorized by the zoning ordinance, and maybe raise an issue with the Joint Zoning Council to take a look at potential outdoor dining amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
I like that idea, Mr. Calabro. I think we need to probably give them a hand up while we can so they can recover from the economic hardship that they're going through for the last 6 months and however much longer it goes on. So I like that idea. So
I just also like that.
Yeah, I just think it adds to the ambiance of the township. You know, I like seeing people sitting out there, and I see a lot of businesses that are actually attracting outdoor dining. So maybe something we can, I mean, is this something that we have to take into consideration in the comprehensive plan, or, you know, with the change of zoning and the jointure? And I mean, we're conducive, we have sidewalks and so on, but I don't know how many in the jointure are fitted for this type of use, outdoor eating, you know. So, but anyway, it's something to think of. I think
It's an idea to float for sure.
Forward. Any other further? Go ahead, Dennis. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I like looking at zoning changes to make it a little easier for folks to do as well. But this resolution is essentially the same as the other one. It's just that letter H is changed to reflect the longer term.
Correct.
Any other questions on this motion? Anything from the public come in? All right, seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The final item on our report this afternoon is a motion to enact an ordinance amending the firefighters' pension plan. Recall the board authorized the preparation of an ordinance that reduced the minimum, what's defined as the normal retirement age from 60 years old and 20 years of service to 55 years old with 20 years of service. And this was necessitated by an arbitrator's finding. So it's really a housekeeping issue with regard to the firefighters' pension plan, and the ordinance has been advertised. and it would require a motion to enact that ordinance.
May I have such a motion?
So move.
In a second? I'll second it. Now this pension requirements, the 55 and 20, that's not mandatory, is it? That's optional if they wanted to retire and had that particular time in, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they can enter the drop program at that point. Mr. Lewis would confirm.
Yes, that's typically the case.
Any further questions for Mr. Sander? Any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That completes our report.
Thank you. Manager report, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General fund balance as of today is $2,252,609. Plan expiration reports before the board with no action required. And I have an additional 2 items under my report for the board's consideration. The first of which is to authorize an $12,000 repair to our articulating loader. It blew a hydraulic pump and several seals. It's just from age and salt getting in there for when we're doing snow plow and all that stuff. So it was an unbudgeted expense. However, we'll take it out of the line item in the budget for snow equipment repairs. So the appropriate motion to consider would be authorization for the repair of the articulating loader in the amount of $11,795.41.
Such a motion?
So move.
A second? I'll second. Motion and a second. Any questions for Mr. Lewis on this item?
Yeah, how long will the repairs take? I mean, is this a major thing?
I'm sorry, the computer glitched. Can you repeat that question?
I was just wondering.
Mr. Mack, you there?
Lose them again?
Yeah, I lost you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I got lost for a minute there. I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
No, repeat we didn't hear anything you said. Repeat your question.
I was just wondering how long the repairs might take and when this unit will be back in service.
The repairs will probably take a week or so, and then it'll be back in service far in advance of winter.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
The other item I have, sort of typical, each year we get rock salt quotes from the Bucks County Consortium. They go out and put a bid out. And the low bidder again this year was Morton Salt, which was actually less than last year. Last year's price was $48.50 per ton. This year's quote is $47.75 per ton. So the appropriate motion would be motion to authorize the purchase of rock salt from Morton Salt Incorporated through the Bucks County Consortium in the amount of $47.75 per ton.
Such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Second, motion and second. Any questions from the board on this? I just have one. Last summer, it seemed we had a light snow season. Do we have a lot left over from our prior purchase?
Yes, we have it's actually, the shed is full right now.
Okay.
So don't jinx it, please.
No, I don't want to. Okay. Any further questions from Mr. Lewis? Seeing none. Any from the public?
I have none.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
That's all I have under my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, sir. Minutes, bills, lists, and reports. Mr. Mack.
Okay, regarding the minutes of August 26, 2020, Board of Supervisors meeting, I had a discussion with Mr. Lewis about this, and I CC'd you, Mr. Chairman, because on the top of page 5, it is stated In response to Mr. Calabro's questions, Mr. Sander confirmed this is the vote to amend the motion, and the overall motion was to approve the conditional use subject to the 6 conditions as amended in this motion. Blah, blah, blah. The motion passed 5-0. It sounds like from that we made a motion to approve the conditional use, and we approved it, and that was not the case. It's a little complicated, and I didn't know how to fix the wording. Specifically, the overall motion was to approve the conditional use, and it goes on to say that it was approved. So I don't think that correctly states what this was about, and we need some way to fix that. I'm sorry I didn't come up with any solution to that. Maybe Mr. Sander remembers all that.
I think the easiest thing might be to just delete that where it says motion passed 5-0. Because I think what was going on at that time was that Mr. Sander was reminding the board of what had occurred at the meeting on March 11th, what the appropriate motion was, and that it was amended to include the 6 conditions that were attached to the application, the motion. So I think just removing that motion passed 5-0, because later in the minutes it does mention that it was denied. So I think that's.
I think I remember asking Mr. Sander just to go over what the prior motion was, of which we never voted on that particular motion, but we did vote on to defeat basically what we had originally done. Is that correct, Mr.
Right
Sander?
there, as I recall, there were 2 votes taken. One was earlier in the meeting, and it was a vote to, I think the motion was to approve with the conditions, and that motion had already been made, so it didn't need to be made and seconded again. When that vote came up to approve the conditional use with the 6 conditions, that motion failed. 0 votes to 0 in favor, 5 against. So that motion failed. Then Toll left and we resumed the meeting, and it occurred to me that the board never took affirmative action to deny. It had merely failed to adopt a motion to approve. So we made another motion later in the meeting specifically to deny the conditional use application, and that motion passed 5-0. So whatever it takes to have the minutes reflect those 2 actions, one, the motion failing, 0 votes in favor, 5 against, and one, having the motion to deny pass 5-0, need to be made.
How about this? How about if it just says, Mr. Sander confirmed this is the vote to amend the motion, and that's it, period.
Well, right. I mean, we did take an interim procedural vote, and that was to amend the original motion to add the 6 conditions, and that was approved. That motion was approved to add the 6 conditions, not to pass the motion to approve the application.
Wasn't that vote that vote on my amendment?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And
Let's
we
be
did-
careful. I think the minutes need to reflect that the vote that passed 5-0 was to amend the previous motion to add the conditions. When that motion as a whole came up, it failed 5-0 or 0-5.
Right.
Well,
So we have to correct it somehow.
should we table these minutes until the corrections are made and we can vote on them at the next meeting? I mean, this seems like there's a lot of adjustments to be made just to do verbal. Should we have our recording secretary get the proper wording and then we could approve them at our next meeting? I'll just throw that out there.
That's the board's choice. You can do that, or you can approve the minutes conditioned on fixing the minutes as confirmed by the township solicitor.
Okay. I mean, is this the only issue that we can approve the remaining minutes pending the changes on this particular section.
Right.
We can do it that way. And then do we have to come back and approve them with that section changed, or does it matter?
If you approve them now, conditioned on amending them, subject to my approval, then you don't have to bring it back. If you table these minutes, then you would have to bring them back.
Okay.
Well, I make a motion to approve it with the condition laid out by Mr. Sander.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any further questions on the minutes? Any from the public?
I have none.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you. Regarding the bills list, I move we approve the payment of our bills according to the bills list that's dated September 9, 2020, totaling $287,238.30.
Okay, have motion, second? I'll second. Any questions from the board? From the public?
I have none.
None, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Okay, finally, I move that we approve the interfund transfers as per the bills list dated September 9, 2020, totaling $228,891.63.
Second that. Any questions from the board? Public?
I have none.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mack. Second session of public comment. Anything come in since the beginning?
No, I don't have anything additional.
Old business to discuss. Anyone? New business to discuss.
Yes, wanted to discuss the streetlights proposal that was, on June 10th, I received an email with the subject line, LED street lighting retrofits for PA municipalities, $0 up front capital expense. I thought that was interesting to at least look into. I met with the person who sent that email, Mr. Lou Nazarides of the Facility Solution Group. And since then, after that, I spoke to Mr. Lewis, and I forget his name, Nazarides, got back with a presentation that he wanted to make before the board. I sent that to the board, and he was asking if we would like to have a meeting with him, perhaps a work session. I know we have a lot of meetings, but there's a lot in this plan that maybe could save us money. I have a lot of questions, and I'm just opening this up to see what the board thinks of it. I think we had some email going back and forth, so I wanted to see what the board felt about this.
Okay, I'll open it to the board. Mr. Fisher.
I'm always interested in learning and finding out some information, but I don't want it to be a waste of this guy's time. And I don't know we're at a place to delve into this at this point.
Well, he's a salesman, so you never waste their time.
Yeah, that's true.
But
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It sounds like it's a good idea, but wondering, nothing's free, right? I don't know if we might save money in the long run, put money out ahead of time. We don't have that money to put out right now anyway.
Thank you. Mr. Oxley?
I concur with Mr. Davis and Mr. Fisher. A lot of what sounds like a good idea, but I am a salesman, and I have to tell you that, yeah, you do waste people's time sometimes, and time is precious, right? So, and if we don't really have the means or the resources for that currently, Mr. Chairman, you have a little more detail around this, right? In terms of there's an actual cost
Yeah.
for it, correct?
I did speak to him. There is some cost. Could it be savings in the future? Yeah, possibly. I have to agree with the rest of the board. Not that I'm against it, but I just think that the timing right now, we're coming into October, coming into the budget season. This may be something that, heck, I mean, if it was February, I'd say, yeah, let's consider it. Maybe it's something we could push back to the beginning of the year and have this gentleman come in and give a presentation. Is he wasting his time? That's for him to decide. Like you said, he's a salesman. But yeah, I've been on sales calls where it was a waste of time. So let's give him a fighting chance so that we're all on the same page as wanting to listen to his presentation. I mean, if that sounds fair, come next year when we start setting up the agendas for work sessions, we could have him on one of our first work sessions.
Well, I agree. We have a lot going on and a lot of meetings and so forth. I would just note that last year in 2019, for repairs of the street lights and the electricity charge was like over $205,000, whereas we budgeted $178,000. So it's a significant amount of money, and whatever we do with street lights, I also understand that there's a special street light tax you can implement that might free up some of that money that we had to repair these. But anyway, we'll continue this discussion at a later time next year. Thank you. One other thing.
Yeah.
If I could. I previously had asked if we should invite, Chief Evan Resnikoff of the Newtown Ambulance Squad to make some kind of report. Again, maybe this is something that could be pushed off into the new year. I know we didn't have one since maybe 2018, and we in the bills list, we just handed over more than $14,000. And I think we should get some kind of a report, especially with all that they're doing now with the pandemic going on. It'd be interesting to know, how this year compares to last year, for example. So maybe that's something we can do next year early.
Yeah, we could touch base with the chief. He's always willing to give a report. So I guess if he has, like anyone else, some freed up time, maybe we could schedule something. Micah, you could touch base with him and see what we can work out. But yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, I think that's basically it, other than what Mr. Halper had to say about this Board of Health, and I need to do more research on that. And, I don't think we know enough about what he's trying to get at. So,
Anyone else? We're on new business. So anyone else have new business? Okay, seeing none. No need for an executive session, Mr. Sander. All right, and
No, sir.
without objection, I would say adjournment. So thank you, everyone.
You guys.
thank you.
Take care.
Have a
Bye.
great rest of the week.